Once hailed as one of YouTube's brightest stars, Lilly Singh seemed unstoppable. She had millions of fans, a global platform, and the kind of charisma that could light up a screen. To many, she wasn't just a creator, she was a movement, a symbol of representation, a brown girl breaking barriers in an industry that rarely opened its doors to anyone who looked like her. But somewhere along the way, the dream started to crack. What began as an inspiring story of hard work and creativity slowly transformed into one of ego, overexposure, and burnout. Lilly's rise was meteoric, but her fall, that was something few saw coming. For years, she was seen as a YouTube success story, done right. From relatable skits filmed in her bedroom to rubbing shoulders with Hollywood royalty, it looked like Lilly had conquered every level of the digital game. But beneath the surface, her empire was built on a fragile foundation, one that couldn't withstand the pressures of fame, expectation, and identity politics. And when the biggest opportunity of her career arrived, a late-night talk show on NBC, it looked like the ultimate victory. In reality, it was the start of the end, because the same platform that was supposed to prove she belonged would expose just how far she'd drifted from what made her loved in the first place. But before we get to the crash, we have to go back to where Lilly's story began and how she became YouTube royalty in the first place. Lilly Singh didn't just enter YouTube, she dominated it. In an era when the platform was still figuring out what it wanted to be, Lilly seemed to understand it instinctively. She wasn't just posting videos, she was building a persona. Superwoman wasn't just a username, it was a mindset. A mix of humor, hustle, and heartfelt relatability that made her feel larger than life, yet somehow still approachable. Her earliest videos focused on skits about everyday life, from growing up in a strict Indian household to the weird quirks of modern dating. And while her content leaned heavily into cultural humor, it worked because she wasn't trying to educate people. She was just being herself. Her exaggerated mom and dad characters, her bold hand gestures, and her natural comedic timing made her videos feel like inside jokes shared with millions of people. What set Lilly apart, though, was her consistency. She treated YouTube like a full-time job before that was even a concept. Every week, new uploads, polished, creative, and full of personality. She mastered the formula of the time: strong thumbnails, catchy titles, and a ton of charisma. Her skits about Indian parents, expectations, and awkward social situations became instant classics. As her audience exploded, so did her opportunities. Brand deals, collaborations, and high-profile cameos started rolling in. She went from making jokes about her brown parents to standing alongside The Rock and Ellen DeGeneres. She even started touring globally, selling out shows across continents, something unheard of for YouTubers back then. But Lilly's success wasn't just about numbers. She was breaking barriers. For millions of South Asian viewers and young women everywhere, she became proof that you didn't have to fit the Hollywood mold to make it big. You could be loud, brown, funny, and proud, and people would still listen. However, behind that unstoppable momentum was something deeper: a hunger for validation. Lilly wasn't satisfied being a YouTube star. She wanted to be the first woman of color to cross over into mainstream entertainment, the first internet creator to become a household name, and that ambition, while admirable, would soon become the very thing that started her downfall. Because when the opportunity came for her to take that next step, to trade the comfort of YouTube for the glitz of television, it seemed like the perfect move. But what looked like a dream come true would soon turn into the biggest mistake of her career. By 2018, Lilly Singh was untouchable. She'd conquered YouTube, amassed millions of fans, written a best-selling book, and even landed major brand partnerships. She wasn't just a creator anymore. She was a brand, the kind of name that could headline conventions, pack theaters, and appear on magazine covers. But even with all that success, Lilly wanted more. She'd outgrown the platform that made her famous and was ready for the next big challenge: mainstream television. That opportunity came knocking in the form of A Little Late with Lilly Singh, NBC's new late-night talk show that was being promoted as a fresh, diverse, and inclusive alternative to the traditional lineup of white male hosts. It was historic. Lilly would be the first woman of color and first openly bisexual person to ever host a late-night show on a major US network. The internet lit up with praise. The media hailed her as a trailblazer. For Lilly, it felt like destiny. In her own words, this was supposed to be the moment she broke every barrier that had held people like her back. "I'm not just sitting at the table," she said. "I'm bringing my own chair." That line captured the spirit of what her fans loved about her. Bold, confident, unapologetic. But beneath the applause and headlines, there were red flags. The show's format was squeezed into the dreaded 1:30 a.m. time slot, a slot most viewers never even stayed up for. The budget was razor thin, and the production schedule was brutal. 90 episodes in barely 3 months, that meant multiple tapings per day, a skeleton writing staff, and barely any time to develop material that could keep up with the lightning speed of late-night competition. Still, Lilly threw herself into it with the same intensity she brought to YouTube. She wanted to prove that a woman of color could hold her own on network TV. The first few episodes were filled with nervous energy, part excitement, part disbelief. She joked about breaking stereotypes, mocked Hollywood elitism, and celebrated diversity. And for a brief moment, it seemed like she might actually pull it off. But cracks started to show fast. The jokes felt rushed. The sketches lacked polish. The pacing was off. What had made Lilly funny online, her authenticity, her relatability, her off-the-cuff humor, was replaced by stiff delivery and forced punchlines written for a mass audience that didn't quite understand her. Instead of feeling like Lilly being Lilly, it felt like Lilly performing what she thought network TV wanted her to be. And when the laughter didn't come naturally, she leaned harder into the only thing she thought would set her apart: her identity, and that's where things started to unravel. Because what began as a chance to represent diversity soon turned into a show obsessed with it, until even her biggest fans couldn't recognize her anymore. When A Little Late with Lilly Singh first aired, it was supposed to be groundbreaking, a woman of color finally stepping into the late-night spotlight. But the same thing that made her debut feel revolutionary quickly became its downfall. Instead of balancing humor with perspective, the show turned into a constant reminder of her identity. In nearly every episode, Lilly circled back to being a bisexual woman of color. It started as an empowering statement, but soon it felt more like a brand than a personality. The jokes lost their bite, the delivery felt rehearsed, and what once came off as confidence started feeling like insecurity. Viewers didn't need to be told who she was. They just wanted her to be that person naturally, the way she had been on YouTube. Behind the scenes, things weren't much easier. The network gave her a shoestring budget and an impossible schedule. 90 episodes in just over 3 months. That pace would have crushed even experienced late-night hosts. And because episodes were filmed weeks in advance, her commentary on trending topics was already outdated by the time it aired. For someone who built her name on timely, relatable humor, that was devastating. As the show went on, the jokes became more forced, and the sketches more predictable. What was meant to celebrate diversity started to feel like it was lecturing it. Her comedy leaned too far into the politics of representation and forgot to be, well, funny. Critics noticed, so did her fans. Many said the same thing. She's not the Lilly we used to love. And that was the real tragedy. The show that was supposed to prove her versatility ended up highlighting how far she'd drifted from the humor that made her famous. And when NBC finally canceled the show, the fallout didn't just end her late-night career. It shattered the image she'd spent years building. What came next would test Lilly in ways fame never prepared her for. When A Little Late with Lilly Singh was officially canceled, it didn't just mark the end of a show. It marked the unraveling of a public image that had once seemed bulletproof. The news wasn't exactly shocking. Ratings had been steadily dropping since the premiere, and online audiences had grown increasingly disconnected from the version of Lilly they saw on TV. But what really hit hard was how personal the failure felt. For Lilly, and for the fans who once saw her as unstoppable. In the weeks after the cancellation, Lilly stayed surprisingly quiet. No long statements, no emotional apology videos, just silence. For someone who'd spent her entire career sharing every thought online, that silence was deafening. And when she did eventually speak up, it was clear the experience had left a mark. In interviews and social media posts, she hinted that the show's downfall wasn't due to creative failure, but to bias, claiming the industry wasn't ready for someone like her in that role. She spoke about how she felt unheard, unsupported, and limited by the system around her. The studio, she said, didn't give her the same resources that other late-night hosts had. And while there was truth in that, her budget and time slot were notoriously bad. It also became a convenient way to avoid the deeper issue. Maybe the show just wasn't very good. For critics, this marked the beginning of Lilly's shift from relatable underdog to defensive celebrity. Instead of owning the show's weaknesses, she doubled down on her identity as the explanation for everything. If people didn't laugh, it wasn't because the jokes fell flat. It was because they didn't get her. If reviews were harsh, it wasn't about quality. It was about prejudice. The same message that once made her an inspiring figure now started to sound like a shield. But what made things even more complicated was how deeply personal her motivation had always been. Through later interviews and her TED Talk, it became clear that Lilly's drive wasn't just about success. It was about validation. From childhood, she'd felt like she had something to prove. Being born into a traditional Indian family where daughters were often undervalued had planted a seed of defiance in her. She wanted to be more than what anyone expected of her, to prove every critic, every skeptic, every cultural norm wrong. And that mindset worked wonders in the YouTube era. Online, defiance was her superpower. But in Hollywood, it became her downfall. Because once her late-night show failed, that same "I'll prove them wrong" energy turned bitter. Every setback was a betrayal. Every critique an attack. She began framing herself as the victim of an unfair system, rather than as a creator who'd simply missed the mark. Public perception shifted fast. The internet, the same place that once crowned her queen of YouTube, now labeled her out of touch. Clips from her show were passed around as cringe compilations, and people began revisiting her old videos, saying things like, "This was when she was real." In a world obsessed with authenticity, nothing kills a career faster than seeming fake. Still, despite the backlash, Lilly tried to push forward. She returned to motivational content, releasing speeches, podcast appearances, and short films under her company, Unicorn Island Productions. But the views weren't the same. The audience that once saw her as a voice for the underrepresented had moved on, either to newer creators or to the very people who used to compete with her. And the harsh truth? Her show's failure wasn't just a career hiccup. It was a mirror, forcing her and the audience to confront something bigger. That representation means nothing if it's not backed by substance. And as Lilly tried to rebuild her career and her confidence, she'd soon learn that the internet never forgets, especially when you've fallen from the top. What came next was her attempt at redemption. But it didn't go quite how she expected. After disappearing from the spotlight for a while, Lilly resurfaced with a new sense of purpose. Or at least, that's how it was marketed. She launched her own production company, Unicorn Island Productions, and announced her passion project, a comedy film titled Doing It. This was supposed to be her grand reinvention, an independent movie she wrote, produced, and starred in the plot. A 40-year-old virgin tasked with teaching a high school sex education class. On paper, it sounded edgy, maybe even self-aware, but the reality wasn't great. From the first trailer, it was clear Lilly hadn't let go of her obsession with identity-driven storytelling. Every scene seemed to revolve around her favorite talking points: representation, empowerment, and breaking the system. But instead of feeling inspiring, it felt forced. The humor fell flat, the dialogue sounded unnatural, and the film's tone bounced awkwardly between raunchy comedy and after-school special. Critics didn't hold back. Reviews described it as confused, self-indulgent, and trying too hard to be profound. Even casual viewers could tell this wasn't about storytelling. It was about image control. Lilly wasn't just making a movie. She was trying to rewrite her narrative, but the audience didn't buy it. Despite her social media promotion and media appearances, the film barely made a ripple. And to make matters worse, people started noticing something strange. Her interviews and YouTube uploads were flooded with suspiciously generic comments, lines like, "This is a masterpiece," and "What a great piece of journalism," repeated word for word across different videos. Fans began speculating that her team was using bots to inflate engagement and make her seem more relevant than she really was. It was yet another reminder that Lilly seemed more concerned with appearing successful than actually creating something people connected with. But by this point, the damage was already done. And what came next showed that even with all her talent and drive, Lilly Singh's biggest enemy had always been herself. By 2025, Lilly Singh's public image had become a case study in overexposure. Once a symbol of YouTube's golden age, she was now the cautionary tale of what happens when ambition outpaces authenticity. Her once loyal fanbase had largely moved on, not because she failed, but because she stopped feeling real. Every move she made felt like an attempt to prove something, to her critics, to Hollywood, maybe even to herself. But the more she tried to force her comeback, the less people cared. Her social media posts felt overly curated, her humor too self-aware, and her interviews came across as desperate attempts to justify her place in an industry that had already decided to move on. The irony? Lilly always preached confidence and self-love, but her career had become one long fight for external validation. Her brand, "Believe in yourself, hustle harder," clashed with the growing sense that she no longer believed in her own message. The girl who once told millions to be unapologetically themselves had lost touch with what made her special: the ability to connect through honesty, not agenda. At this stage, even when Lilly appeared on major podcasts or talk shows, the numbers spoke louder than her words. Low view counts, recycled talking points, and lukewarm reactions painted a clear picture. People weren't buying what she was selling anymore. And yet, underneath all the noise, there's a strange kind of tragedy here. Because Lilly's downfall isn't about lack of talent. It's about losing her compass. She wanted to be everything: the trailblazer, the activist, the celebrity, the brand. But in trying to be all of them, she forgot how to just be Lilly still. Her story isn't just one of failure. It's a powerful reminder of how fast fame can twist identity, and how even the most determined creators can lose themselves chasing the spotlight. When you look back at Lilly Singh's career, it's not just the story of a YouTuber who fell off. It's the story of someone who mistook visibility for validation. She started as a creator who spoke from the heart, who made people laugh by being herself. But the more she tried to matter in Hollywood, the more disconnected she became from the audience that made her famous in the first place. Her rise was built on authenticity: a brown girl cracking jokes in her bedroom, breaking cultural barriers without even trying. But her fall came when she tried to manufacture that same authenticity in a corporate setting, surrounded by brand deals, writers' rooms, and forced diversity slogans. What once felt raw and relatable became stiff, strategic, and painfully self-conscious. The truth is, Lilly's biggest enemy wasn't her critics, or even Hollywood. It was the pressure she put on herself to be the first brown woman to host a late-night show, the first YouTuber to bridge into mainstream entertainment, the first to prove that internet fame could translate to real-world success. But sometimes, when you're so focused on breaking barriers, you forget to ask whether you're still happy doing it. And that's the tragedy of Lilly Singh, a pioneer whose ambition pushed her to the top, and then past the point of no return. Because when your drive comes from trying to prove your worth to everyone else, it never ends. No amount of views, awards, or Hollywood deals can fill that void. In the end, Lilly's downfall isn't just a warning to creators chasing fame. It's a mirror for anyone who's ever tied their value to being seen. Because sometimes, the hardest lesson to learn is that the spotlight doesn't define you. It only exposes what's already there. Today, Lilly Singh's legacy lives in a strange middle ground. Not quite forgotten, but far from the powerhouse she once was. For newer generations of creators, she's more of a historical figure, a reminder of what YouTube used to be before algorithms and short-form content took over. For older fans, she's a bittersweet what could have been. her downfall wasn't explosive. It was gradual, quiet, and painfully human. The numbers faded, the applause stopped, and the spotlight moved on. But even now, it's hard to deny what she accomplished. She built a career from scratch in a time when nobody believed YouTube could create real stars. She opened doors for countless creators, especially women and people of color, who might not have had a platform without someone like her breaking the mold first. That part of her story deserves credit, but it also serves as a cautionary tale for those trying to follow in her footsteps. Because being first means carrying the weight of everyone watching, and sometimes that weight crushes you before you even realize it. Still, despite everything, Lilly's story isn't one of total failure. It's one of evolution. The internet moves fast, but people change slower. And maybe one day, Lilly will find her rhythm again. Not as the girl who needed to prove the world wrong, but as the woman who finally stopped trying. Because in the end, every creator's journey teaches the same truth. Fame fades, trends die, but authenticity, that never goes out of style. Lilly Singh's story is one of those rare internet tales that feels almost cinematic. The meteoric rise, the cultural impact, the inevitable crash, and the long, quiet aftermath. She went from making goofy bedroom skits to sitting in late-night television chairs once reserved for Hollywood legends. But somewhere along the way, she lost the spark that made her special. The unfiltered, relatable energy that connected her to millions. Her downfall wasn't about one bad show or a single failed project. It was death by 1,000 moments of inauthenticity. Times when she seemed more focused on proving she deserved her success than actually enjoying it. In trying to be a symbol, she forgot to be a person. But maybe that's what makes her story so relevant today. Because in an age where everyone's chasing algorithms, clout, and clicks, Lilly's career reminds us that authenticity still matters. People don't connect with perfection. They connect with honesty. They don't remember the statistics or the sponsorships. They remember how someone made them feel. And if there's a silver lining to her story, it's this. Lilly's journey, the wins, the losses, the ego, and the lessons, is proof that failure isn't final. It's just feedback. Maybe she'll reinvent herself again. Maybe she won't. But she's already made history once, and that's something no downfall can erase. Because at the end of the day, every rise and fall online leaves behind the same message. The internet forgets fast, but the story of how you handled it, that lasts forever.